Well, we kind of just missed something wild. I can't believe it. It was going on for so long that I literally stopped where I was going and came back over here to try to share with everybody this truly bizarre scene that was going on just literally 15 seconds ago. It ended. There were two police SUVs over here kind of digging out of this snowbank, and a homeless guy just screaming at them, relentlessly cursing at them, calling them the N-word, saying that he lives at the, what did he say, the Starlight Hotel? I don't know what he was going on about. I was going to present it to everybody, but then it sort of satisfied itself, or resolved itself, I should say, just a moment before I was about to go live. Now, I wanted to come out in the midst of this, sort of the end of the snow here. We're now in the midst of when the city is at its crappiest after a snowstorm. Of course, Weed World is out in full force. This is unbelievable. I want to show people how New York is evolving in ways that it absolutely never would have before this pandemic. So right across from this Weed World place, this is literally right across the street from where 21st Century 3D's office used to be. This is Tennis Innovators. It's an indoor tennis court on the ground floor of New York City, which would normally be retail. This is lessons, academies, camps. Looks like a bunch of little kids taking tennis lessons. And then we've got the illegal weed sales right outside here. I know everybody tells me this is CBD and all that. I have no problem with marijuana. I think it should be legal. Certainly they sell booze and cigarettes near where little kids are, but whatever it is they are selling here, they're certainly showing marijuana and weed candy and all kinds of things that perhaps people who want to teach their kids how to play tennis don't necessarily want them being exposed to, and I can certainly understand that and feel for them. But that's not what today's video is about. That just happened to happen as I was making my way over here. I wanted to talk about a bunch of different things today. First of all, people who were watching, was it yesterday? I think it was yesterday. The days blend together. No, that was Wednesday, so that was Charles. It must have been Tuesday. People who were watching on Tuesday, we got a little stabilizer failure there. People who were watching on Tuesday when I went to the restaurant rally, I do believe it's important to save restaurants while we're having this pandemic, save people's jobs. I think that's really important, actually. There was a lot of disruptions to the live stream, and I know that people are very prone to say, oh, that's the deep state interfering with Jason's broadcasts. And there's a lot of different ways that people could interfere with broadcasts. We've spoken about this IMSI catcher, which is a type of device that people can even make with certain types of routers that like snags the signal from your cell phone and causes it to latch on to a device that prevents the outgoing signal from my cell phone from reaching the internet. That could be being used. I have no direct evidence that it is, but I've always been fascinated with complex systems and the ways that they fail. I think it comes from my early days as a computer user. When I was like 12 and 13, computers were pretty new. As bad as technical support generally is nowadays, it was like the Wild West back then, and you had to, figure all this stuff out for yourself. So I got really good at troubleshooting computer problems. The other thing I wanted to do with this broadcast today is for people to see this is what happens after a snowstorm in New York. It becomes this slushy, gushy, treacherous mess, and just walking around is quite dangerous. You can easily slip and fall, hurt yourself, break a bone, twist your ankle, fall down, break a wrist, find yourself in the emergency room where basically nobody wants to be right now or ever. But a lot of disruptions on the live stream come from Times Square the other day. Now what I've got going on here, no matter how simple people think it is to broadcast on YouTube, this is a complex system. It's several different computers and devices integrated together that all rely on a variety of different things working properly, internet service providers that I pay for, phone bills that I pay for, SIM cards, connections, wires. I think I hear myself talking in my back pocket, so we know we're live. That's good.
Yeah, a lot of disruption.
It's a complex integrated system. If anything here fails, some aspect of the broadcast will stop. Now, on the one hand, that makes it easy for someone to deliberately disrupt it, but it also makes it really easy for it to fail all by itself. And I want to get into this because it's almost like the Karate Kid, where when people understand this, they're going to understand other things, like he taught him how to wax the car so that he could have some kind of karate block move. I want people to understand these complex systems and the ways that they fail. So what happened on Tuesday is I have this one phone on my wrist that allows me to control the broadcast, and then there's another phone on the end of this stabilizer that people who've now photographed me around New York City see all this setup. I have basically an ad hoc Wi-Fi network that I'm walking around with. One of these phones is broadcasting a Wi-Fi signal that the others pick up, and et cetera, et cetera. So there's also audio mixing and all kinds of things going on. And when I was leaving my apartment on Tuesday, I noticed that the audio mixer wasn't connecting. So at the last minute, I swapped out the main phone for another phone. But because all phones look the same, I accidentally picked up a phone that has a battery in it that, even though it says it's 100% charged, when you go outside in the cold, it goes from 100% to 10% to failure within minutes. And so that happened. And then I had to rely on a really improvised setup for the rest of the time that I couldn't hear the audio. So when that persistent audio looping problem occurred, it was really annoying for a lot of people. So I've addressed all of these problems, and my investigation of that indicates that it was just a cascade of unfortunate coincidences and very probably not related to deliberate interference. But again, if it was, that's why I encourage people to become sponsors, because if there is somebody out there who is deliberately interfering with the broadcasts, their goal is to prevent me from broadcasting, to prevent people from seeing this information, and to prevent you guys from becoming sponsors by going to subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, where you can see the director's cut of that broadcast. I went back, I had the original audio, put back the audio, so all that audio skipping, audio looping is eliminated. There's a lot of really good interviews with New Yorkers and people on the street that you can now hear. So I encourage people to become sponsors. It's also becoming increasingly likely that pretty soon that might be the only way to see Crowdsource the Truth. There's been a persistent effort for as long as I've been on to terminate Crowdsource the Truth broadcasts through malicious strikes. Here outside the failing New York Times. And it's windy as hell. It's a terrible weather day. People can see what's happening with the traffic here in New York. This is the Port Authority bus terminal here. Doesn't look like a lot of activity in the New York Times building. Thank you for physical distancing. Oh yeah. So complex systems and their failures. So let's continue that discussion. The United States of America is a complex system, and the law has, sort of a similar array of, a lot of things that are interrelated, that are predicated on one another, working properly, and certain, conclusions that lead to other conclusions and things like that. So we are all right now essentially being lawfared by the governor, at least in New York and probably in your own state, the governor, the mayor, people in Congress, people trying to become the president. When I say we're being lawfared by them, they just came out and said that they've been working on this COVID stimulus package, and Blasio said he's not happy with it because it doesn't have enough aid for the cities and the states. But that causes me to ask, well, okay, so was all of this done in part to create a truly horrendous financial situation so that Cuomo and de Blasio could demand money from the federal government to help fix this problem that in many ways they created. Now remember, this is all predicated on COVID-19 is spreading, so we have to shut everything down. We have to shut restaurants down. We have to shut movie theaters down. Movie theaters shut down. That causes film production to shut down. People might have heard Tom Cruise had some kind of meltdown on set, yelling at people for COVID-19 stuff. I've never met Tom Cruise. I've never worked with Tom Cruise. Although people I know who have, despite what anybody might think about his religious beliefs, everybody has always said that Tom Cruise is great. Like the opposite of so many other people. Bruce Willis, people have told me, not nice. Tom Cruise, exceptionally nice, gracious, friendly. So I don't know, something going on there. Tom Cruise flipping out on set. But the point is, you could leave these places open and tell people, look, if you're not worried about getting sick, if you're not worried about, any of the risks associated with going outside, I mean, it's like cigarettes. If you're not worried about the risk of getting lung cancer, smoke away. And booze, if you're not worried about slipping and falling down when you're drunk or crashing your car. Well, I mean, there you could kill somebody, so that's a different consideration. But, there's negative health effects of drinking alcohol. They don't close McDonald's because it's terrible for you, and you got an increased risk of getting diarrhea or a heart attack. They just let you do what you want and make your own choices about your own health. And likewise, they could say, hey, if you feel safe, go out to Applebee's, have something to eat, come on in, as it says. They could have done that. They don't sit around making every single decision for everybody to mitigate risks. That's a new sort of approach. What's up with this thing? But now they've shut the place down. De Blasio's been talking about we're going to have another full shutdown. But why? They keep talking about increased cases. We know they're testing more people. I don't know. Everybody I talk to doesn't know a lot of people. Maybe some people know one person, two person, three people. I spoke about my elderly aunt who's diagnosed with COVID. Haven't heard anything else about it. When I asked my cousins, I asked my mom, she's fine. So, I mean, if I, in the past, had heard that a particular relative had the flu, you're concerned. You don't want anybody to be sick, but you're not. It's not like hearing somebody's been in a plane crash or has cancer or something like that. So it's strange to me. We see Rudy Giuliani had it. He recovered. He doesn't look too healthy to me, and he's over 70. Trump, overweight, over 70. He recovered. So what is going on? And again, this is all predicated on this understanding that we have to wear masks, we have to stay away from each other. Somebody sent me a very interesting letter from the New York State Department of Health, and this was in response to a FOIA request. I'm including the guy's information because it's a P.O. box, and this was sent, publicly. This is a response to Mr. Huston's letter. It responds to the Freedom of Information Law request from October. Copies of records which indicate the efficacy, pro or con, of wearing masks, face coverings, by the general public is an effective method of stopping the spread of infectious diseases such as influenza or COVID-19 and any safety risks associated with the long-term wearing of the mask. Please be advised that after conducting a diligent search, no records responsive to your request have been located. So when I make fun of the goonish, thuggish, stupid governor by saying, we're going to follow science. Mask up, wear a mask. Do not be obnoxious in your tone. The schools will close until every teacher is forced to submit their DNA to a Chinese database for who knows what. But the point is, they're talking a lot. They're saying, oh, yeah, trust the science. But when you say, what's science? It's just a foregone conclusion that whatever they think is science is correct. However, we have not seen a study that indicates that wearing a mask protects you or anyone, and we haven't seen a study that tells us what the possible side effects of that are. It's crazy because I've spoken to a lot of medical doctors about this. Medical doctors who in the past have told me things like, well, you can't just take that preventative step for XYZ because there could be consequences, and unless you know what those consequences would be, it's imprudent to take a particular prophylactic medical measure without science, without research, without knowing what it would do, because you disrupt the status quo and it could make the situation worse. And as I look around New York City, I can't really think of something being much worse than what we have right here. I mean, frankly, if half the people in New York City died from COVID and this is what we were left with, that would make sense, but we haven't had that. We've had like less than 1%. There's been a lot of reports out that say less people died in 2020 than did in 2019. So, however contagious and dangerous COVID is, maybe we should just stay home always and do nothing and wait for the government to give out money because less people will die. But that's, I'm joking, of course. That can't be the way anything is done. And I also want to point out that this notion of the stimulus package, I'm not denying that people have been out of work right now, and an emergency relief would certainly be helpful. But I was a bit troubled by some of the people who have been at some of these protests I'm at, who maybe don't quite have the right idea. And I'm not blaming them. There are people who we've heard saying, oh, if the government wants to close our businesses, then they have to give us money. No. That is incorrect. That doesn't work. That might work for 9 months, or that might work for one payment in 9 months. But even then it won't work because you're going to get that money and then it'll be done. And where does the government get money from other than printing it, which makes it worthless? And people have probably seen that Bitcoin is at an all-time high of like $23,000 or $24,000 for one Bitcoin. I know a lot of people have a lot of different opinions about Bitcoin, whether it's good or not, or whether you should buy it or not buy it. I don't know if I realize that this is PlayStation Theater. So it's pretty weird. I guess it's good if you're Sony. But Bitcoin, a lot of people are speculating, has reached this incredible value because people are losing confidence in the dollar. And that could be as a result of them just printing so damn many dollars that they are worth nothing. Lee Stranahan was talking to me just the other day on our newly reinstated High Dive with Lee Stranahan that people can see on Patreon and Subscribestar. Lee was talking to me about that article, The Money Plane, where I think it said $1 billion a day in cash were being flown to Russia in the 90s to launder money. I mean, that is crazy to think about that. But we don't really have necessarily any idea of how many dollars there are. And they're just printing them, apparently, and giving them out. And this seems to be a mathematical guarantee of the collapse of the dollar. There's just too many of them around. And if nobody's doing any work and nobody's creating any goods or conducting any services, how can we have anything of value? We need to manufacture things, we need to sell things, we need to do work, we need to create wealth, inventions, and restaurants are a great example of that. People go in there, spend their money, other people are working there, they get money. This is how the economy flows. Whoa. So if I collapse and smack my head into the street, this might be the last stream, but see this slush. Anyway, the point is this, hey, give us more money to continue staying home. That's the wrong idea. I'm not against a stimulus package. I know a lot of people have lost a lot of money. They need financial assistance in getting back on their feet. But in my view, the focus needs to be, let's get to some real science and figure out what's really going on. We've had enough time now that the fear of uncertainty with regard to the general population's exposure to COVID-19, we're pretty well past that. I mean, we've all been around environments where it's been for a long enough period of time that I think we can dispel these notions of it being this, zombie apocalypse disease that they were talking about in February and March. But yet the news, the mayor, the governor, they keep bringing that back. Like, oh yeah, lockdown 2.0 we've been hearing de Blasio talking about. And I mean, why? Why do we need another lockdown? Why aren't we hearing about how many people are dying? We've heard the hospitals are overrun, but haven't we now? Heshy works at the hospital. He said it wasn't overrun. Other people have been contacting me saying that they aren't overrun. Reefer Madman mows yards. So that's work. People need work to be done. You do that. That's a service that improves their lawn. They give you money. There we go. So 20 inches in Connecticut. Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of snow. This wasn't a terribly huge snowstorm for New York City. We've had a lot worse. But, I mean, certainly I'd say 6 to 12 inches. And people can see what that does. It creates a lot of work for cleanup, treacherous conditions for walking around. It generally slows the city down for sure. This is where that protest was happening just the other day. But yeah, these complex systems, they fail in complex ways, and a lot of times people want to jump to the simplest conclusion because, in part, that Occam's razor, the simplest solution must be it. Yeah, but that's a very subjective, what is the simplest solution? When it comes to why my broadcast failed, somebody might think the simplest solution is that somebody is actively interfering with it, but that's not the case. It just seems like, when you have a lot of equipment that's working together, there's a lot of different ways in which it can fail. I have it pretty well figured out. I think I know what happened with that broadcast on Tuesday, and I've rectified all the problems, so it's not going to happen again, hopefully. But let's see, where did I want to go with that? There was another thing about, oh yes, right. So people jump to a lot of conclusions about a lot of people. Me and people they see on the internet and what Donald Trump is going to do and, what's going on with what. There was a big dust-up where Sidney Powell, I guess, was it Detroit, Michigan? It has, some article in Axios or something like this said, oh, Sidney Powell hit with sanctions. Or, lawyer requests sanctions. So, okay, I mean, this happens all the time, that one side of a lawsuit accuses the other side of something, and the other side accuses them of something. That's the way these lawsuits go. Wow, so here's people sitting in the plastic, freezing. My gosh. So everybody's got a heater pointing right at them. I mean, who would do this? This is the most unpleasant possible scenario you can imagine. And oh, by the way, when walking up here, I saw some of the outdoor restaurant huts had collapsed due to snow. Some of the ones that were less, robust, the ceilings collapsed under the weight of the snow. So more headaches for restaurants now that they can't have indoor dining in the winter because according to non-science, Cuomo science, that's going to do something. I don't know. At this point, I think Andrew Cuomo should be compelled to present this science. I'm a little bit all over the place here, but I am going to be speaking to the lawyer that Tina Forte mentioned to us last week. That's Carl Schwartz. He's brought a Section 78 action against the governor to, compel him to govern according to the law. And it's important to realize Governor Cuomo is lawfaring all of us. And I say that because he's avoiding service of process in this Section 78 action by just saying, oh, I'm not here. Can't receive your lawsuit. So, I say it's lawfare because this is a guy who isn't using the law to govern. He's using the law and the intricacies of the law to oppress. So just like the opposition to Sidney Powell can put in a motion for Rule 11 sanctions, which is a standard thing that a lot of lawyers try to do against other lawyers, but I'm learning basically almost never is acted upon by the court. This is basically just saying, oh, this person brought this frivolous lawsuit for a wrongful purpose, to harass or to otherwise do something that you're not supposed to do with a lawsuit. And obviously Sidney Powell says, no, we brought this lawsuit for the purpose of bringing forward evidence, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I do have to say, the people in Michigan cited some things about Sidney Powell's lawsuit, which frankly I agree with. You know, I like Sidney Powell, I support what she's doing, but I never follow or support anyone unconditionally. If they do something that doesn't make sense or appears to be wrong or lying or somehow against the rules or the law or whatever, I'm going to call that out. This thing is really in trouble. Okay, maybe it's back now. Walking by Kramer Levin, which sounds like it would be a law firm. I don't know anything about that. But the point of the matter is they cited this expert witness, Naveed whatever. I think this thing is dead. It's not working properly. I've had so many problems with these stabilizers. So I don't think it's outside interference. I think it's what happened. I'm not even going to go into the details of what I think is happening with this. But point of the matter is I agreed. This expert witness, Naveed whatever, was spreading nonsense. Hammer and scorecard is nonsense. It's a lie. Mary Fanning is a liar. I've challenged her. She refuses to answer the questions logically. I tried to warn General McInerney that he was either being deceived or part of the deception himself. I didn't even get to that part where I explained that to him. He just didn't even want to hear about the evidence that I had that indicated that Mary Fanning was lying. And for me, somebody who's trying to put evidence into a lawsuit, unravel a deception, you'd want to know that detail. You wouldn't simply hang up the phone. Now, I'm going to reveal something that I didn't want to reveal. But I saw a really upsetting tweet earlier today, which David Knight has been fired from InfoWars. So condolences there to David. Sorry to hear that. He's been on there for a long, long time. I'm pretty sure he was the first guy I started watching on InfoWars. And he was probably the most level-headed guy on InfoWars. He was the first person to bring me on there, which I really appreciate. And I respect David, and I like his point of view on so many things. We don't always agree. But sometimes we do. I don't know why he was fired. I have some inkling, because the thing that I am ready to reveal is that I, too, have been banned from banned.video. Haven't spoken about it a lot because I don't blame Alex Jones. And this is going to go back to my complex systems explanation. I don't even know if Alex Jones made the decision to ban me. And then they say that I'm not banned. I'm just not allowed to upload videos there anymore. So that sounds like being banned to me. And it happened right after I uploaded that phone call with General McInerney. And if you haven't heard that, you should subscribe to Crowdsource the Truth 2 or subscribestar.com/crowdsource the truth and patreon.com/crowdsource the truth. You can see it there. I called up McInerney and I said, General, I have evidence and information that indicates that Mary Fanning is lying. Hammer and scorecard, not factual. You got to be careful about trying to inject that information into real and legitimate lawsuits, because when it's really scrutinized by serious people, you're going to see that it's nonsense. I mean, you can talk about it on 8chan and you can talk about it on...
Stay doing that shit, bro. Stay doing that shit, bro. Stay doing that shit, bro. Yeah, they want to do that fucking fact and try to get that straight. I'm not hurting.
Very concerned about 6 feet of space. I don't know what was going on there, but anyway, yeah, I mean, when the type of evidence they were talking about was to be scrutinized in a serious lawsuit, it was quite clear that it would not be adequate. Dennis Montgomery is an absolutely terrible witness. He's been involved in a number of public legal cases that have determined that he is not a credible witness. So introducing him, that guy just rode by so fast. So, offering him as a witness in one of the most serious and important lawsuits ever proposed is a terrible idea. And also, people are like, oh, no infighting and blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to just agree with General McInerney because he says he's a general and he's on Trump's side. First of all, he's wrong about what he's saying. And if he won't listen to facts and if he won't explain why he thinks what he's saying is correct, when there's a lot of evidence to indicate that it's incorrect, not factually based, and doesn't even make sense within the context of what he's saying, well, then I have to conclude that he's either deliberately lying or so stupid that what he says cannot be considered. And whoever is insulted by me saying that the general is stupid, sorry, he's stupid. And he's rude. He hung up the phone on me. He brings up, personal problems. Look, that's his business. I'm not getting involved in that. And, I hope his wife is fine. But that has nothing to do with this conversation. And there's a lot of people who are suffering in their health. Don't get involved in issues of national security and the election. But if you're going to get involved in that, I don't want to hear about your personal problems. I want to talk about the false evidence that you keep introducing. So the guys who run ban.video did not like the phone call that I had with General McInerney, so they deleted it and have blocked me from uploading anything more. Now, I'm not saying that means anything other than they didn't like it. People will say, oh, Alex Jones is this, Alex Jones is that. I have no information about Alex Jones other than what I see on the internet and his personal conversations with me. And even now, I have nothing but positive things to say about Alex Jones. He's been generous with me. He's always dealt straight with me. I don't believe this was his doing. There's a lot of people who work at InfoWars. There's a lot of people who have influence with Alex. I could think of a lot of reasons why. A lot of people there might not like me. Might not like Crowdsource the Truth, might not like information that I put on there. I've experienced this all throughout my career, I met J.J. Abrams at an event at, South by Southwest? No, it was Sundance Film Festival. I showed this to David Hawkins on a show we did one time, the Phantasma VR, a stereoscopic VR piece that I did. J.J. Abrams was so impressed with it, he told me to contact his office. And when I did, I dealt with a litany of 20-year-olds who weren't present at this personal meeting with J.J. and had no interest in me communicating with him, because I imagine lots of 20-year-old people working for J.J. Abrams want J.J. Abrams to see their fantastic piece of work, not some outside guy. So there's very low motivation for them to put me in touch with the man in charge, and this is speculation. I don't know what caused ban.video to kick Crowdsource the Truth out of the upload area, but I'm no longer allowed to upload. So I don't want anybody to do anything, but if people do feel motivated to write emails to InfoWars, and if you feel like Crowdsource the Truth being available on ban.video was good, you should tell them that. I would still like to be reinstated on ban.video. We were getting a lot of views on there, and I think we were posting good and interesting and important videos. But now I can't post there anymore, and also a lot of people have been noticing that the Jason Goodman channel on YouTube has been struck yet again. So I can't get the videos out through that method either. And the reach has been greatly, greatly reduced. Just a few months ago, we had access to Facebook, had access to a channel with over 100,000 subscribers on there. So, there's a lot of things happening that are sort of slowly suffocating Crowdsource the Truth. And, I've seen comments from unknown people on YouTube. Wow, look at that. I bet you that's a machine to melt the snow. Yeah, look, it's got a heat lamp up there. Seems like a slow process. But speaking of slow processes, this is the slow suffocation of Crowdsource the Truth. And some of these comments, they come in there and like, ooh, how come Jason hasn't been taken off of YouTube yet? And in addition to being just kind of like the most annoying, antagonistic, the amount of stuff that people say on the internet that they would never say to a person in real life is amazing. But the answer is they've been trying for 4 years to get me off of YouTube, and I've been aggressively pushing back, legal letters and all kinds of things, and creating these alternative methods of reaching Crowdsource the Truth that have frustrated their it hasn't frustrated the effort, but it's no longer as strategic to just outright remove me from YouTube, because the source of income does not come from YouTube. The source of income comes from the viewer sponsorships on subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, which are also being attacked. So again, when people have these ideas in their head as to, oh, this is why that happened, somebody is disrupting Jason's broadcast deliberately, or Jason's not being removed from YouTube because of somebody wants him there to do whatever, or Alex Jones is controlled by this or that because of whatever conclusion somebody comes to without any actual information, that is very irritating to me, because people send me comments of all kinds that say, oh, Jason Goodman's a shill for NASA. That's the latest thing. They had me on some debate about flat Earth. And because every person I've ever spoken to about flat Earth has presented me with inconclusive evidence that they draw conclusions from, I just don't believe that theory. I think there's a lot of information that causes me to believe that the Earth is a sphere and it rotates around the sun, and all that stuff makes a lot of sense to me. I'm open to anything that can be explained with evidence, but the people that cling to that theory seem to just feel that because they are going counter to the mainstream that they must be right, and the only logical answer is that the Earth is flat and Jason's a shill for NASA. So it's a far, far stretch. And by the way, I do not think that getting banned from banned.video means that InfoWars or Alex Jones are particularly controlled by anyone or anything, or have any motive other than they might have believed the general and thought that I was rude to him, or, created a situation where they might get sued, or who knows what. But again, I'm not going to go off and say, oh, I don't like InfoWars anymore. I think they're doing great work. As a matter of fact, they had an article out that I just saw on my way over here. Jean-Luc Brunel has been arrested, I think in Paris, trying to leave France. Jean-Luc Brunel, closely associated with Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein. And the guy that was just arrested that I find even more interesting is Peter Nygard. Oh yeah, I meant to walk by the Nygard place. It's all the way up there now, though, I think. Or where is Nygard's place? I don't know. It's closed now, but he's been arrested. And it's super weird because, he's arrested for basically the same stuff that Epstein was up to. But the super weird part is that they had the same exact jet, the Boeing 727, and that's a really rare jet and really unusual for such rich guys to be flying around in a 50-year-old jet, totally inefficient. You could buy 737s all day and night. That's the most common Boeing jet ever manufactured. That's the most common commercial airplane ever manufactured. But yet these guys choose to fly around in these inefficient, old, fewest number of parts around the world, fewest number of mechanics around the world, fewest number of pilots around the world. Why? Why would they do that? We're going to continue exploring that on mostly David Hawkins' show. That's tomorrow. People are going to be able to watch that on Patreon and Subscribestar. So there's a lot of good reasons to get on there, keep Crowdsource the Truth going, get access to these other shows, etc. But yeah, there's a noose tightening around each of us, and it's tightening around Crowdsource the Truth, because there are certain people out there who don't want you to have access to these broadcasts. And there's going to be people who say, oh, get on BitChute. I'm on BitChute. There's going to be people who say, oh, get on Library. I'm on Library. People will say, oh, get on, this, that, or the other thing. look, the bottom line is I'm on those platforms, and if you're a supporter of those platforms to the extent that you're telling me to get on there and you don't know that I've already been on there for 2 or 3 years, that's proving my point that these are not platforms that lots of people go to. It's not a large enough audience where people are discovering Crowdsource the Truth, and Crowdsource the Truth is growing. YouTube has been an important platform for that because so many people come to YouTube to see stuff. If I do a video related to some other video, it could get recommended to a new viewer, and this is how it grows. So if people aren't ready to become sponsors, the second best thing that you can do is go email this video or your favorite Crowdsource the Truth video to a friend or 2 friends or 5 or 10 friends. Yo, by the way, you can also, it's almost Christmas, you could offer gift subscriptions to Crowdsource the Truth, or rather I'm offering them. You could buy one by going to crowdsourcethetruth.com and sponsoring the Counter Lawfare Fund. Once you become a sponsor, you can provide me with the email address of anyone you'd like to gift with a 1-year subscription to Crowdsource the Truth. And we can set it up in less than 24 hours. That person can be watching Crowdsource the Truth on Subscribestar. You can also find the links to Patreon and Subscribestar right there at the bottom of the page. And if you don't want to put your credit card into the internet, you can mail a check or a money order or wampum or whatever. You can mail it to me and you can get a 1-year subscription. But wanted to get out today to let people know about this stuff, to show everybody the mess that we've got. I would say this is an adequate cleanup, for as incompetent as de Blasio is. At least they seem to have plowed the streets. I don't know how this is going to affect the now famous outdoor dining. But I mean, everything is basically closed. Krispy Kreme is here, but no line for the first time. I mean, they seriously want people to sit in these little plastic boxes to eat donuts or something. It's quite wacky. Let's see if we got any comments from interested parties. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. So, 823 people, Chicky Rogue says, and only 234 likes. Yeah, that's another thing that people can do to help Crowdsource the Truth, is just hit the like button, hit the thumbs up button, and I think it causes the YouTube algorithm to recommend the video more. That would be helpful. This is streaming live on Crowdsource the Truth 2, which is the backup channel, and it just doesn't get the kind of reach that the main Jason Goodman channel was able to get. All these malicious strikes have really broken the momentum of the main channel and prevented it from gaining the kind of viewership that it would otherwise have. And that's not an accident, by the way. I'm very confident that the social engineers that have been haranguing me for 4 years or 3.5 years, whatever it is, they're constantly contacting YouTube, constantly contacting all kinds of people to try to create trouble for me. So if you hit the like, if you hit the share button, share it on your Facebook is a good place to share it, because anybody who's on Facebook looking for Crowdsource the Truth, let them know. Facebook kicked off Crowdsource the Truth and Jason Goodman, and I just cannot access anything on Facebook anymore. Can't post videos, can't message people, lost access to loads of international friends. Really very objectionable by Mark Zuckerberg. And hi, Laney. Yeah, Mike Moore told me he's taking December off. I still see him posting, his podcasts. So I perhaps misunderstood what he was telling me. Maybe it was just December off from our show. Yeah, Dr. Ford will be on again. I've just been, really... The other thing is I've been really, bogged down with legal stuff. I've still got the Emmys lawsuit. I'm still being sued by George's brother. And Robert David Steele has, as I read the judge's order, in violation of a judge's order, he's refiled his same lawsuit against me essentially the same. He's refiled it again. So, this really eats up a lot of my time. That's their goal, And that takes me back, this is a good bookend perhaps to what we were talking about before. That takes me back to Governor Cuomo lawfaring all of New York. He's not following the law to govern everybody. He's doing whatever he can within the context of the law to achieve his goals. So, the fact is, if somebody serves you with a lawsuit, Governor Cuomo, he doesn't want the lawsuit, so he just avoids the service. But we're going to hear from Carl Schwartz later today exactly what's going on behind that. And, he may know that what he's doing is beyond the scope of his role as governor, but instead of abiding by the law and serving justice, he's just using legal tricks, issue an executive order, and then when somebody sues him saying it's unconstitutional, oh, well, that order has expired and we have a new order. So this is sort of like, dancing in between legal raindrops to be able to avoid actually doing the right thing. And he's just doing what benefits him. I think most people are outraged with Andrew Cuomo writing books when he is governing a state that's in an utter disaster, winning Emmys for what most people think is just about the worst performance by anyone as a governor, probably ever. There was that investigation into the activities at the state-run nursing homes where they disallowed people, the homes from testing people when they were brought back in after treatment for COVID. They disallowed the testing of people. Now they're encouraging, this park is closed. Now they're encouraging everybody to get tested, but before, if you had COVID and were going back into an area where there were a lot of vulnerable patients, then they wouldn't allow you to be tested. And people will recall Tina Forte told us that she wanted hydroxychloroquine, but because of an executive order from the governor who's not a doctor and who has no legal power to tell you what to do with your health, he said, no, nobody's allowed to have hydroxychloroquine. Why? Science. Cuomo science. Very interesting. Now, look at that up there. I've just noticed that for the first time. Do people see that? What is that? It kind of reminds me of the extinction. What is that thing called? Extinction Revolution? Is that it? What is that? Some Chinese travel lounge. Oh no, that looks Korean. Well, I don't know what's going on over there. This is like the little Korea area over here. See, they got a lot of outdoor restaurants down this street. I wonder how they're dealing with the snow.
Yeah, but you could go.
I don't really feel like walking down there, but I'm sure there's not that many people out because there's just not that many people out today. And it's dangerous to be walking around. We're getting close to sunset here. And it's probably about 30 degrees right now. Not terrible, but definitely not warm. It's less windy than it's been. So it's kind of pleasant walking around, but it's definitely going to get cold overnight, and all of this wet, slushy, like tomorrow is going to be really dangerous walking around because all of the muddy, slushy snow is just going to become super slippery ice. And I think a lot of people break bones and stuff around this time of year walking around New York City. Got to be real careful. Let me see, just keep my right hand free in case I slip. But that's pretty much what I wanted to get to here on this walk. Show everybody the mess around this disgusting snow mess. talk about some of the latest developments with the governor and the mayor and what they're up to. And I'm definitely interested to speak with Carl Schwartz. That's going to be coming up tonight at 6, so just about 2 hours from now. He is the lawyer who has brought a number of different actions against the governor. One we're going to be talking about tonight is this Article 78. Is it Article 78, Section 78? You know, you can't sue him because he is immune from civil lawsuits when acting in his capacity as the governor. I'm going to ask Mr. Schwartz what the limitation of that is, because obviously, you know, that's the other interesting thing about the law, by the way. You know, people who maybe don't know that much about the process feel like, oh, well, this is the law and I didn't do anything wrong, so it's going to be fine. That's not the way it works. The law is kind of like an ongoing argument, and what's written is like sort of how it goes, and depending on what the judge says, I mean, this is happening a lot to the president. Some of these lawsuits that have been brought, many people have felt should have been heard, particularly the one with Texas and the Supreme Court there. There's now been some information that a phone call, I don't know if this is corroborated. I heard something about a phone call with John Roberts. And speaking of phone calls, Project Veritas released a phone call between Julian Assange and I think the U.S. State Department. It was super interesting. It's Assange trying to warn them. I mean, you know, Julian Assange seems to be a guy who's trying to do the right thing, and he's sitting in prison. A lot of people are talking about Trump pardoning Assange. I don't know if this is something to ask Carl Schwartz. I mean, again, lawyers, people think, oh, this guy's a lawyer, let me ask him a question. But it's like asking a podiatrist about your brain surgery. They don't necessarily know anything about that particular area. But what I'm curious is, you know, people are talking about Trump pardoning Assange. But would that actually do anything? I mean, isn't he under arrest in England for violating some kind of bail law? And if Trump pardons him, won't England just say, well, okay, but we're keeping him in jail until he's dead? I'm not saying Trump shouldn't pardon him, but then again, I don't know. Maybe he shouldn't. Why can't Trump get him to the United States and then pardon him? What's going on? Why is it taking so long to extradite Julian Assange from England to the United States? And what does that have to do with any potential pardon that he might get? I just don't know. I don't know where that music is coming from. I don't know. What do people think about that? I mean, if Trump pardons Assange, do they let him out of jail in England? Is that how that would work? Does anybody in the comments know? Ann T.M. says Corsi believes something will happen Friday. Well, Dr. Corsi is sometimes right about stuff. I was really very unimpressed with how he handled our last interaction, so he's lost a lot of credibility with me in terms of counting on or... God, these idiots walking down the street with their personal music systems, that's like the new deal. You're not allowed to do that. You can't walk around broadcasting sound. Part of the reason is it annoys other people. And that guy is proving that right now. Yeah, I think this stabilizer is just about on its last legs. It's not looking too stable at all, is it? He is being held for the U.S. But so why hasn't he been extradited yet? You know, I just feel like this is a game they're playing with him, with us. Even if Trump pardons him, will that do anything? Don't know. Trump watching the destruction. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, look, I don't think Donald Trump is the savior of mankind, but he is the president. And he's in a position to do things. I mean, that's just it. We can't be waiting around trusting the plan. Everybody's got to take care of themselves in the best way that they see fit within the context of the law. You know, Larry Klayman speaks a lot about revolution. I believe he's talking about a legal revolution where, we do these grand juries. A lot of people have tried to malign Larry and the grand juries. I think it's because they're effective. That is, Larry and the grand juries and the different things that Larry does, and the people maligning him are ineffective, jealous, hater, social engineer jerks. But really the best thing about the citizens grand jury, in addition to educating people the whole process, we're creating legal documents, affidavits, testimony, sworn. Larry knows more about this. I don't know what the details are, but you have the right number of people and a lawyer or a notary public or whatever, and somebody gives that testimony where they swear under oath, and there's a way to authenticate that testimony so that it can be used as evidence. And then it becomes a matter of trying to get the legal system to do something. And how do we do that? Well, we vote for president, and then hopefully that process is valid and has some sway. So this is a new phenomenon. Homeless people living in tents on the streets of New York City. Haven't seen that too much before, but we can see that, society, civilization is breaking down when people start doing whatever they want, propping up tents, not abiding by the law. I'm talking about the governor now. The governor can just tell people you have to wear a mask, even if actual science will tell us there's no evidence that does anything. And we've got people who are telling us that they feel lightheaded or sick, or bacterial infections could increase. There's a lot of conflicting information. And we just have people saying, oh, this is settled science, trust the science. They talk about science, but they don't actually cite any real science. I wonder how these tree farming Christmas tree things are doing. I gotta think there's a lot fewer people purchasing Christmas trees this year because I see more people moving out and just way less people around in general. Pet stores closed, I guess, for snow. But there it is, sloppy, snowy mess. Outdoor dining has reopened earlier today after a closure due to snow. And, people get a pretty good idea of what a sloppy mess New York becomes after a relatively big snowfall. Yeah, the collapsed outdoor dining hut was over on 8th Ave, so I'll look at the temperature. It's going to be 33 every now and then. So that's just about it here for my snowy walk around. There were a bunch of people who I saw on Instagram who were up at Central Park last night. It's always nice when the snow is falling at night before they've begun to clean it up. But we sort of covered the intro to the snowstorm on Charles Ortella's Closing In yesterday, and now we've got the aftermath. And head back to the apartment and get ready for this conversation with attorney Carl Schwartz. We're going to talk all about the legal action that he's brought against Andrew Cuomo. This is very important to me. I want Andrew Cuomo to be held legally accountable for what he's done. And by that I mean, I don't want him to be able to hide behind the governorship or political appointments and sweep all this under the rug. This is where the corruption is happening. And I'm not talking about Andrew Cuomo. I'm talking about the people at the top. We cannot allow Joe Biden to refuse to answer questions about this tremendous amount of evidence that indicates that him and his son and his brother and other members of his family have been involved in business dealings that really look illegal, that cannot be ignored. And if you voted for Joe Biden, if you're a person who cares at all about honesty, integrity, or this country remaining viable, these questions have to be answered. You can't just, post snarky crap on Twitter and tell Donald Trump to get over it. This is serious stuff. So we'll see what Mr. Schwartz has to say. Big thanks to all the generous sponsors. Make sure you get onto subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. And you know, don't forget the gift subscriptions or an annual subscription for yourself on crowdsourcethetruth.com. I really need people's help in building up the strength of this counter lawfare fund. The social engineers that are trying to sue me are directly trying to attack my ability to raise money, because they know that allows me to counteract what they're doing. That allows me to counteract their dishonest lawsuits. This, by the way, is the same thing that Governor Cuomo is attempting to do to Danny Presti over at Mac's Bar, Mac's Public House. He lied. Governor Cuomo lied. He told the world that Presti assaulted uniformed NYPD officers. NYPD said they were not present and had nothing to do with the arrest. Those were plainclothes New York City sheriffs. So why did the governor lie? And if he's willing to lie about that in furtherance of his own political agenda, what else is he willing to lie about? Who else is he willing to destroy? He'll destroy Danny Presti's life. How will Danny Presti's little kids do if their father goes to jail? What happens to them? I have a feeling most people whose fathers go to prison don't have the best outcome in terms of their psychological development, their ability to get a good job. I mean, I think this is kind of like the cycle of violence. You throw the father in jail, and then the kids act out in school and have a terrible time growing up, and they become criminals, and society suffers. So Andrew Cuomo is into doing stuff like that, lying to achieve his own political goals, to destroy other people's lives, to destroy this state, to destroy this city. And I'm just interested in doing whatever I can do to end that. By sharing information, by getting people involved, by letting you know what people like Carl Schwartz are doing to stop this. So join me at 6 p.m. Become a sponsor of this show. You're going to have an opportunity to help Carl Schwartz financially with his legal case against the governor. These are things that people can do. Even if you send $1 or $2, if thousands of people did that, and we had lawyers who were going up against these guys, this is one way that we can work together legally. I'm not advising people to get out into the streets. I'm not going to lie to you. If there's a revolution, I'm super likely to get killed. I don't want that to happen. I would prefer to fix the system that we've got and make the best of it and try to make it work for us. Anyway, that's it for now. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great